Welcome to Red and Dead Podcast. This is the first episode and our first episode released ever. Greetings, this is South Hill, your local signalman on the digital space. We have two honorable guests here, which is Crystal and Gajira. Say hi, Crystal.
What's up?
Yeah. And Gajira?
Sup, y'all?
Yep.
Dingus Maxing benefit.
Today we will be talking about Asian diasporas, the culture, how imperialism shaped the Asian diaspora culture. But first of all, let's introduce this channel for a bit. Red and Dead is a Marxist-Leninist podcast channel dedicated to share Chinese views of Marxism to our Western audience. We promote unity and conversation between continents, like a true Marxist internationalist. Yes, so this channel is mainly run by me, which is a Chinese national living in Shanghai, the liberal city, I know. And today we have our two honorable guests. First of all, we have Crystal, which she is an Asian diaspora, Chinese diaspora living in America, and Gajira, which is a Chinese national currently living in overseas for academic stuff. Yes. So the one thing I want to ask about Crystal is about is the one thing I want to so we're going straight into the topic, and yeah. So Crystal, I have a few questions about diasporas. So, how do you think about the current how East Asians diasporas are presented in the Western media?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Personally, I think that Asian. So the Asian diaspora, judging based on the makeup and how they are represented in media, I feel this strong sense of misogyny mixed with racism, which we can see. Like, first of all, let's talk about makeup. Those small things, those really sophisticated things are the ones that are really important. Like those small things, One thing I noticed is that the makeup style of Asian diasporas who are living in the West are generally very different from Asians living in their own nations. Of course, different culture will have different makeups, but what I see is that Asian diaspora makeup kind of enhances the typical Western misconception / stereotype of East Asia. It enhances the stereotypes. It highlights your cheek into an unholy level, and generally focusing on make your eyes looking more slanted, etc., etc. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I'm gonna be honest here. I never really paid too much attention to makeup. I don't really I'm like very out of the loop when it comes to makeup. I'm so sorry. Like I thought you were talking about like makeup as in like like right like not like physical makeup. I thought you were talking about like makeup of like people living here. But no, I'm sorry.
Yes. The thing I want to ask essentially is that it is Asian diaspora culture in the West truly, truly like organically developed by the Asian diaspora communities,
I see.
or is it shaped by white supremacy and
Oh, I see now.
imperialism?
I see now. I see now. Sorry, I was confused by the question because you brought up like actual make. You were describing actual makeup, and I was like, wait, it's a little confusing. Okay, going on to that. Yes, it's honestly it's definitely shaped by imperialism. By all accounts, have you heard of Amy May Lee? If you're curious.
I Please enlighten me on the subject, please.
Okay, so Amy May Lee was pretty much a Chinese I'm sorry, Amy Wei Wong. I mean Amy May Wong. I thought is a Chinese American film star. Well, the quote unquote first one. She produced in basically, she's a second generation Chinese American who produced films in the silent film era. And how do I say it? All the films that she portrayed in were always she was always the villain. She was always portrayed as the helpless villain who's being manipulated by an evil, like by evil Orientals kill evil Orientals in a danger, and then there's a brave white people who she's never the love interest, rather she's always the secondary interest, a plaything for the white man before the white man gets the perfect white beauty to marry. The funny thing is there was this one specific film where it was completely set in China, right? I forgot the exact name of it. It was supposed to be set in China, yet instead of casting she wanted to audition for it, right? She wanted to audition for the female protagonist, right? But they
Yes.
wouldn't let her do it because everyone else in the cast was white and they were doing yellowface. And if she auditioned for the female protagonist, not only would she be the good guy, she would also have to kiss the white man, which is obviously no go. It's race mixing. And
And
clearly. However, only during the 1940s were her roles more positive by Chinese standards. And you know what happened in the early 1940s.
the early 1940s. I believe you. Yes, the Chinese people fought against the Japanese and played a big role in World War II. And and then Chiang
And,
Kai-shek got really close with America. Uh,
but,
and and
but yes,
the and the
if you want me to share a photo right now, but just how like Orientalist the ideas were, I would put it in chat real quick, see if you can see it. This is a
yes,
photo of her. This is a photo. This is a photo of her like doing modeling for a show called The Daughter of the Dragon.
yep,
And just look at this is just gives this is the film poster just gives the entire thing away. Evil
yes,
dragon woman who's trying to seduce the innocent white man.
yes. I get what you mean. Uh, if you look at so I rem so Orientalism actually started way before like all the racism shit. Remember how the re, remember if I recall correctly, Orientalism can be seen in the Renaissance era, uh,
Renaissance era, yes,
Renaissance
Renaissance era.
era, where
They they've
where the
imitated if I recall correctly, they imitated China. There was a fad of imitating Chinese porcelain, but with not only inauthentic copies, but inauthentic concepts.
you know uh in a more broader sense, Orientalism is essentially just the intimation or depiction of aspects of the Eastern world, uh, which in the Renaissance era, uh, the people of the scholars and philosophers of the West portrayed the Eastern world as a very stable and prosperous nation, etc., etc. And all and later back in and later to the Qing dynasty, where after the Industrial Revolution, the the colonists got into the Qing dynasty and absolutely beat the crap out of the old feudalist emperors, and then Orientalism has a turn, which is understandable, has a turn to depict the East in a more barbaric and backwards fashion, where all the men were savages and swindles, and the woman as exotic and attractive, etc. This sudden change is very understandable since material condition shapes the superstructure. This superstructure contains their perception of the East. Obviously, Orientalism, as times developed, became bonded by imperialism ideologies, such as white man's burden, like, to portray the Eastern people as people that need saving, they need salvation, and until this day, this kind of idea can still be seen in a lot of Western people's minds. Actually, for example, when talking about racism, they see us as people who needs to be protected instead of we need to be protecting ourselves. And this leads me to the second part of this entire thing. Why are Asian diaspora pondering to Western ideology? This is one of the questions I want to talk about. Remember during the Stop Asian Hate, there were slogans about how, essentially saying, "I am fragile, please don't hurt me," stuff like that, which at first glance seems to be promoting anti-Asian hate, but if you really dive into it, this is actually the Asian diasporas giving up their own subjective forces, giving up their own subjectivity to become the one protected instead of being masters of themselves. What do you think of this, Crystal?
So I want to bring this up earlier, right? When you brought up the whole thinking of us being protected, there was a recent during anti-Vietnam protests, anti-war protests for Vietnam, Asian protesters would actually separate from the white ones because the white feminists specifically, these are Asian women and white women, the white women specifically said we need to protect our Vietnamese children, the Vietnamese children and our younger sisters in Vietnam. And it's just, obviously, it's very infantilizing, and that's why they obviously separated from the movement. It's very infantilizing. It sees them as no agency. And another thing I want to bring up was the whole, they have internalized the white supremacy in themselves. They see themselves as, because they're in a foreign land, they have to accept the fact that they're being ruled over by a foreign overlord, and that is the whites. A follow-up thing is that another thing in the protests I remember seeing is like, love us like you love your food. Yet that's not necessarily always like that. That whole idea of love us like you love us, love our food. There's a very big divide when it comes to Asian foods. For example, unless the cuisine is Japanese and more recently Korean, your food is seen as a cheap, inexpensive meal to eat, especially with Chinese takeout. I know I presume you're familiar with Americanized Chinese food, even though you've never been, you've never had it
That's
before.
I know what you.
But it's synonymous with cheap. You didn't spend any effort to doing yourself and getting it when you're hungover. And it's even seen on YouTube, for example, where people will write Chinese takeout better at home, healthier than original health, better than takeout, healthy Chinese takeout planning and whatnot. There's even a restaurant that was made that was literally type. Those are like better Chinese, which is like, oh, we have no MSG use, therefore it's healthier. You know, Chinese food is synonymous with dirty, disgusting, while certain Asian cultures, especially specifically Japanese and Korean food, is seen as synonymous with clean and thus
Classy.
classy, and thus given higher price points. This also applies to an extent to Southeast Asian foods. For example, Thai and
Indonesian,
Indonesian
Vietnamese.
and yeah, Vietnamese cuisines. But the most specific example is Chinese cuisine because unlike the other cuisines where they kept some semblance of themselves, right? The average American is more familiar with the Americanized version of Chinese food that we brought in the 1940s. 1840s when we had to adapt to Western we had to submit to the imperialist cooking palates because for two reasons: practicality and trying to get money.
Yes. The problem I am trying to present here that is that the often under the influence of Orientalism philosophy, uh, the Asian diasporas often internalize this kind of mixture of racism and misogyny, and think that we do not have the ability to fend ourselves. And and frankly, speaking of pondering Western narratives, there are also a certain kind of phenomenon that I want to address. It's about uh, this the all stuff about Asian parents and the Uncle Roger phenomenon,
Yes, yes,
and
I'm
how
familiar.
how a lot of Asian comedy about Asian culture is about is just about
Stereotypes and whatnot.
stereotypes,
The
stereotypes, stereotypes, instead of things that are
the funny
stereo.
thing is, can I interrupt for a moment? The funny thing is, the one time I actually laughed about a joke about Chinese people came from a white person who joked about how China has a 5,000-year-old history. Yet when I went to that banquet, my dessert was just fruits. Can't they just come up with a dessert menu? And that was the only time I laughed at a joke about and that was made by a white man. Every single else time was like it was always just stereotypes of very tiger parenting and whatnot. That just made me roll my eyes. That was the only it says a lot when an outsider who just talked about experience at a restaurant made me laugh. Then
You know,
Gonna be honest, the whole fruit joke is a lot more creative as well too. Because now that I think
exactly.
uh,
about a lot of Chinese things when they give you dessert is just like oranges. Now that I
it's
think
just
about it,
Exactly.
that was, I
That
went
was a
to
that was a
so so I was having a few a dinner meeting with one of my with some customers and there we're we're have we're having a quite kind of gourmet meal, like it's a at a at the rest at a as a on a like mid to high tier restaurant that I know. And guess what they serve for dessert? An entire plate of watermelon. Like it's just
exactly
an
exactly.
entire plate of watermelon. That is
Exactly. He joked that like I spent like $1,000 on this meal, yet somehow the only thing they can offer for dessert is just fruits. They have a 5,000-year-old civilization. How can't they come up with something advanced further than just fruit for dessert? And I was like, that's hilarious. If that's the only Chinese food you ever had, then yes, you would think the only thing we have for dessert is fruit.
I mean, if you no no all right.
Sorry, go
And
on.
and about the we are kind of derailed for a bit, but that certainly is funny. Like it's that one is actually related. Like, but that get me wonder. Like, why are Asian people like celebrating the stereotype that white people impose upon them instead of fighting against it, instead of seeing the problem behind it and fighting against it. This is one thing I don't understand. Don't 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 we all as human beings have a most basic sense of our dignity to like to ask us, hey, at least respect our culture for a bit. Why don't I know there are probably people that speaks out against this kind of trend, but why is this kind of comedy generally seen as acceptable? For example, stuff like, for example, the Asian parent jokes and all the accent and such. Why is this kind of joke seen as acceptable in the first place?
Personally, in my like 2 cents, when I talk to Asian diaspora, when I go to Asian diaspora, right, they don't even understand their culture properly in the first place. That's the thing, right? You understand it through characters, through like when they think of Asian. You see, when I think of Chinese, right, I think of 秦始皇, 中央政府, you know,
when I think of Lu Xun, I think of Li Bai. I think of Du Fu.
I think of Liu Bei. I think of Sun Wukong. I think of and I think
but when they think of China, right? When the diaspora think of China, their first thought is food. Like
exactly.
the only real connection to the culture is just cuisine and maybe language if they do speak it, but even then, not really.
I think
they actually consume Asian media, the only thing they'll consume is probably anime or Korean like drama, which is already relatively speaking prevalent somewhat in the West, especially anime.
This is the problem. Asian diasporas are basing their identity on symbols, on deconstructed symbols of our culture. I am not saying that cuisines is not culture or our media is not our culture, but rather we are more than that. What the history behind all these things of all of our collective struggle as a culture has been all the history. Asian diasporas are being, alienated from all of this. They do not know the struggle against imperialism. They do not know they cannot relate with the collective pain of the fascism aggression in World War II. They cannot relate with the South China Sea, with all the South China Sea and plane crash incident with the
American plane. I want to bring up that cuisine problem because I actually had a little discussion with my cousin. This was about 10 years ago, right? I was always interested in history, so I already knew like some basic Chinese history knowledge. I could name like the dynasties in order from like the chronological order and just the basic understanding the past 100 years, right?
Yeah.
So I had to explain to him. He was actually 9 at the time. I had to explain to him clearly about what the heck, why the China, like, hey, he asked me like, hey, why is Taiwan and China two different countries? And I had to explain to him like, well, here's what happened. There's this Chinese Civil War stuff, and I had to explain how Mao came to power, and it was something that like it feels kind of odd because like I had explained to him to that even he was 9 I think when you're 9 in like the mainland you probably know what the fuck why the fuck why the hell there's a red flag and not a blue one with a sun
Yeah.
blue and red one with a sun and going on to that they have no relationship to culture. When we visited China with a different cousin, right? I was actually very much awed by the Sun Yat-sen Mausoleum, even though my Mandarin was very rudimentary and I couldn't read properly. I still looked for as many English translations as possible to read. While my cousin just stood there and like stared at her phone, and I was just like, I wanted to slap her. I wanted to slap the phone out of her hands because I felt like this do you not know who this is? And she just act like who the hell this guy is, and I just like, and I had this like an audible eye roll when she didn't know who the hell Sun Yat Sen is.
Sun Yat-sen, he is a great person. Although he doesn't have a coherent ideology.
He's still a very important figure in the whole founding of modern China. Like there is no.
He is the first. He is the first person ever to set up a bourgeoisie anti-feudalism revolution in China. And that means a lot to the Chinese people. That means the more than 4,000 years of dynasties, of emperors will finally come to an end. This is important for the Chinese people. And I cannot believe such an important figure is not recognized by the Asian diasporas, especially the Chinese diasporas.
Mm-hmm.
I
think it's very annoying. I think like my dad mentioned how like I was the only person in the family who actually tried to read Sanguo, who actually try to read Sanguo and try to like analyze some of the characters. And, like even though your Mandarin is actually the worst out of everyone in the family, you're somehow way more interested in the culture than than everyone else, which is so shocking because you would think that like because there are people out because some of my family members have better Mandarin than I do, they would actually be way more interested in going after that stuff. There's only one person I can think of in my family, and that's the oldest cousin who participated in participated in kung fu, so that's why. That's that. Yeah, did I speak? Is that kung fu in Chinese? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's kung fu.
Yeah, kung fu.
Yeah, kung fu. I kind of forgot. Yeah, kung fu, and he actually did some reading he actually did reading like classic wuxia scrolls and whatnot, but not actual scrolls. But he spent a lot of time at a younger age just consuming wuxia novels and kung fu stuff. So he actually has more connection than He's the only one who actually outside of me who has connection with the culture. Everyone else is very relatively speaking, they know the language better than me, but they're not connected as much.
Speaking of all this, I know this is not planned as original, but this begs the question: is that one of the problem I have experienced with our own media, our media in China, is that although it's been a lot better, but why aren't we we need to be talking about our culture, our history in a modern era, Mark. We need to we should due to the effects of how imperialism media has been taking over China in the early 1990s. I feel like a lot of our I feel like a lot of our media has fallen into the being deconstructed into mere symbols kind of stuff. It does not have its own sometimes our media are, you know, I didn't. I like TV shows about the Three Kingdoms. I love TV shows about the in the concubines of the Qing dynasty. I enjoy these shows. They're entertaining. But if why aren't the thing that matters the most, which is our history of socialism being spread out? Why is China be or why is China not being why is that when Westerners first think of China, they think of an old dying thing instead of a well, it instead of pe- instead of modern people. Why is that? Like this is some problem that are happening with our own media is that we are lacking our presentation of our own ideals. We are for and we are keep bound by the cultural symbols that is of our own history. I I mean for it, I know this seems a little bit ridiculous, but let me bring up Genshin. Essentially it is essentially explaining the world through a Chinese worldview, uh, with ideas that are heavily influenced by the shaped by the Chinese cultural aspects. It, you do not need to tell a Chinese story with only China. You know, for example, you could set, for example, you, also with modern interpretations of our own ideals. For example, the like the the wandering Earth. That is a really good example. And the three body problem. It's those are really good literature and pieces of media that that shows a potential for what the Chinese media can be. What of how can we change? How can we reverse the tide of the Orientalist interpretation of China of Chinese culture or even East Asian culture in general, Asian culture in general? Do you know what I mean?
No, yeah, I think that's a good point you make as well. That China definitely lacks soft power, but I think that's just any socialist country in general. Any socialist country will inevitably lack soft power or cultural power within the capitalist world system. So it's the world system we live in. It's dominated by capitalism, and so every capitalist country and every capitalist has a vested interest to not want to have people, or especially socialist countries, stall socialist virtues, right? Like even if Japan doesn't like, even if Japan or let's say Nigeria or the USA or Canada, even though that they are differing political systems and social beliefs, their economic mode of production is still fundamentally dominated by capitalism, or at least has traces elements of capitalism being predominant in it, which means that these capitalists who run society don't necessarily have a vested interest. I mean, Nigeria is probably a bad example, but let's say the global north. The global north doesn't have a vested interest because these are the people who have cultural hegemony or cultural monopoly. Do not want a person from a nation from the global south that already has enough hard power, or has hard power to actually influence and check and extend its, let's say, not extend our strength per se. I think I bet would be able to reliably defend ourselves, but to not have any like meaningful cultural exports is definitely, in our in their purview, right? And I mean, like, even people like who don't like China or into politics, even if they see a video of poverty alleviation in China, their opinion of China just goes up. And the Western media is very well aware of this, right? Which is why you see narratives saying, "Oh,
I would
China
like
didn't
to bring that
really
up
abolish
actually.
poverty." Yeah, sure. Go
So,
ahead.
there was actually a documentary a while back that they produced with association of PBS, the Public Broadcasting Service, with CGTN about the war on poverty, right? But they completely removed, even though it had won rewards, it was completely taken off the air and pretty much scrubbed from PBS's records because that was painting China way too much in a positive light. And yes, it's a vested interest in trying to make sure that they don't make sure that they don't show any socialist soft power. It's also why I've never seen a movie theater aside from the ones in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, and New York. Show Wandering Earth, or that other one, the other big one a while back, the one with the Korean War, the one with the Korean.
Oh, Changjingu, the Battle of Lake Changjingu.
The Battle of Lake Changjingu.
The Changshinhu movie either, because outside the ones with significant Chinese diaspora, no other theater showed it.
And
same goes with Wandering Earth. There's they had none of these films are showed anywhere aside from theaters in specific large Chinese diaspora, and specifically around theaters near Chinatowns.
And there is this something that I also find interesting, that you talked about hard power, how hard power and its dynamics between how its interpretation in the media. Since China has been on the rise since the early 2010, Western media has gone from China being going to collapse anytime soon, or to more of a, oh, China is this threat. China wants to eat your entire grain supplies. China wants to paralyze our electricity. China wants to like conquer all the world and make up their slaves. Let's not talk about the clear projection first. That we will save for another episode. But how the Asian diasporas react to it. They first of all, the Korean and Japanese diasporas distance themselves from the Chinese diasporas. And furthermore, the Chinese diasporas distance themselves from mainland. Furthermore, which honestly feeds into this loop of the deconstruct of the Asian culture in the West, which is a really serious problem, right? Like, they do not, because the West fears China, hates China for what it truly is. So the Asian diaspora are seeking a way to bypass the oncoming Asian hates by pondering this Orientalist perversion of an idealized China in the global capitalist state. A backwards haven for Westerners to explore. They want to ponder this kind of stereotyping.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I feel when I see the recent phenomenons that I saw on the Western media, on the Western TikTok, on YouTube Shorts, and even some people I have met in real life. This is very problematic. You guys are distancing yourself from your own culture to escape from this white supremacist threats, instead of fully embracing who you are and organize together to fight against it. I would like to bring up a quote from Mao Zedong. Seek peace through struggle, then peace prevails. To seek peace from concession, then peace perishes. this is what the this is the this is this is a quote that every Asian diaspora needs to listen about it. Because what you are doing is to give away the explanation of your own culture to a white crackerish narrative. You guys get what I'm saying?
Mhm.
You guys are not going in charge of your own culture. You guys are not making your own stories. It is the white people who are making your stories. It is the white people who decides which kind of aspects of your culture should be highlighted and which one should be hidden behind the curtains. This is a problem you face.
Would I like to bring that up with a recent example?
Sure, no problem.
Have any of you guys heard of the movie Everywhere, Everything Out All at Once?
I've seen the film. I've seen the film.
I have heard of it. I know it.
Yes, but basically, it's white directors, and they very much highlight the aspect of tiger parenting and how Asians are all homophobic because she does not like the fact that she has a lesbian daughter. And it's very much the case. And I also like to think that this might be just me being conspiracy minded, but the reason why I got so many Oscars is because they're trying to psyop the Chinese American community in pointless things and Asian American community at large by giving that film so many Oscars and so many rewards. So that way they can see that they're quote unquote you're accepted as they continue to try to attack them from behind.
Even then, this kind of acceptance, is this what the Asian diasporas truly is? This really the end goal? This is just more subtle racism. The film is just
the characters were just the only thing that's Chinese about them is that they spoke Chinese and they had the Chinese New Year party. They could replace it with a Korean family with Korean actors, and nothing would have changed. Nothing would have changed.
Exactly. I mean, I saw the film itself. It didn't really feel very Chinese, besides the fact that they spoke Chinese and ate Chinese food. But once you change the equations, even if they ate Chinese food and you replaced it with a white family and they spoke English, the story wouldn't change. The fact that the family is Chinese has zero impact whatsoever on how the story progresses. Mm-hmm. It's an irrelevant point. And anyways, let's say even then, let's say hypothetically, the film industry has accepted Asia, has accepted Asian input, the way Asians want to do film. Broadly speaking, it has. Look at the success of Squid Game, anime, the adoption of Hong Kong movie styles, and the gun battle.
The Netflix adaptation of the Three Body Problem.
I'm not watching that. I am not watching
that. Yeah,
I'm not watching that.
Me and Nix are gonna watch that just to laugh at it. I've already read the entire book series translated in English, including the fan sequel, and I just want to laugh at it with Nix.
I mean, even if you're accepted in a cinematic way, it doesn't stop people from getting lynched.
Oh, definitely.
Black hip hop is still hip hop, and black music is very much normalized in the West. Doesn't mean people aren't racist to black people. It's a mere acceptance of your immediate cultural expression doesn't mean they accept you as an individual or you as a collective group as people. There is still systemic racism towards black people, even though hip hop has been widely popularized. And the exact same thing can be said for the popularization of Asian media.
Unironically, the same thing that is being praised, for example, your culture can be also be. Okay, no problem.
Can I cut in? You can just go back even further. Rock, jazz, they're all black musical inventions. The whites co-opted them, but jazz especially was very much done by black community, especially in New Orleans and Harlem, and they still got lynched. Segregation still existed, even though whites loved jazz music.
And the one thing that's the very media representation that people crave for could be the very thing that be turned against you. No matter how hard they want to deny the fact, many of the movies are white in core, not from a view of the people of color. Many of the movie does have this problem. It is essentially trying to fit people of color into white narrative instead of actually talk about their what truly makes them alive. Histories and cultures can be perverted, can be deconstructed in the modern media, and that is a dangerous trend that is generally not looking good for the Asian diasporas. Yeah.
I mean,
And go for it, Crystal.
I mean, there's a very big perversion of a lot of stuff. For example, Shioji is like, everyone knows. It's been like, I wouldn't say it's a perversion. Dragon Ball isn't necessarily a perversion, as it is just a homage to it. But if your exposure to a story is through like a secondary source, it's not going to be it's not going to be very good.
This is not meaning that well, we should only stick to the original, but rather we are talking about.
No, sorry about that. Just cut that. I messed up. I forgot. I lost my train of thought. Just go ahead. It's my bad.
Yeah. The problem is not with secondhand interpretations. There are good secondhand interpretations and secondhand interpretations that are based on stereotypes. No, we ain't having the second. That's not gonna happen. There are some good imagining of old stories and to be honest, this isn't how do I say this? Essentially, the problems that Asian diasporas face is a mixture between is a byproduct of the geopolitics of the entire Western-based world order and its interaction with the culture. The only, and this might be controversial, the only way to break this kind of trend once and for all is maybe, to let socialism, to let this entire capitalism world order crumble.
Oh my God! How controversial!
How controversial? Huh. I mean, if you want big changes, prepare for big conflicts first. This is for the Asian diasporas. I will end this video with a quote that Chinese communists are familiar with to all the Asian diasporas regarding your culture, your own place in the American society, and honestly, to every leftist out there to want to see things to change. Give up your fantasies and be ready to struggle. This is Red and Dead coming from you from digital space. See you all. I'm South Hill. See you next time.